I learned a lot today.
We can call them Bula days. Beat
Bula?
up, learn a lot days.
Beat up Luna. Yeah,
Just
it's
like you said, a Bula day.
a Bula day. It was a Bula day. Yeah.
All right, Rex. I have 59 crazy questions
What?
in a spinner.
Okay.
I
All
took a
right.
page out of the Sid Meadows playbook.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
And
Goodness.
these are going to be your warm-up questions.
Okay.
I don't know if you
All
can.
right.
I don't know if you can hear that. Here we go. The first question is, what's the pettiest reason you've ever disliked someone?
The pettiest reason I've ever disliked someone. There's lots of reasons. I've got relator as a strength. So I do vote people out of my island. And I don't know, maybe competitive rivalry,
Sure.
maybe keynote speaker or somebody. I tell you, somebody's moving into the strategic foresight futuring thing and they claim to be futurists. And I go, oh boy, that's pretty lame. You got a certificate. What does that mean? That's probably the competitive rivalry thing.
Yeah. I guess that's petty enough. All right.
Yeah.
The next one coming up here. I guess this one's interesting. What's the strangest social rule we've all just accepted?
Strangest social rule. What's a social rule? Give me an example.
I don't know. There's actual rules like driving on the right side of the road, but that wouldn't be like a social rule. Maybe not wearing sweatpants to work or something.
I tell you, the political correctness language. I got corrected by somebody with a nonprofit firm. I gave an example of being a seasoned citizen. She says, we don't use that language here. And I said, okay, all right.
Seasoned citizen is not usable.
Just trying to get the language right. It's so awkward sometimes. Everybody has a context that you grew up with. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and some of this stuff is just ingrained. And so when the social norms shift, there's not a lot of grace for just kind of, okay, let me do a retake on that. So the social blind spot, just social cue blind spots frustrate me. And so that's one of them.
I think that's a good one. That's a good answer. I'm just going to go with like shoes. I feel like just in general, whatever make your feet feel comfortable.
Oh yeah.
Is totally acceptable to me. I can't wear nice shoes because I just have foot issues, and I'm like, we should all just be walking around in sneakers anyway. It's more supportive. There's more technology behind it. Like, it's just somehow just not
totally. I don't follow any certain kind of clothing rules. Right. I wear what's comfortable.
Yeah. I've seen that.
I'm in a total agreement. Yeah.
All right, last one. We'll do one more.
Okay. All right.
We'll save the other for the future episodes.
Okay.
Here you go. If your life had a subtitle, what would it be?
If my life had a subtitle, when I grow up, that's my subtitle. When I grow up,
I will be Rex Miller. When I grow up.
When I grow up. Yeah.
That's good.
Because I'm always doing something new. And my wife has commented sometimes that I've got about a 3-year window of whatever I'm doing, and I'm going to throw that out and move into some new direction.
That is a good segue to hopefully an episode that captures the wisdom that you've gained through life coaching. And through just experience. 70 years. You know, you turned 70 recently, and here you are saying 71. When I grow up.
Yeah.
What about 70 has been an unexpected blessing?
Just my health. I mean, good health, good energy, passion doing what we're doing, finding a new S-curve, so to speak, with the ranch and the nonprofit. We're starting to get some traction there, and the mission and the purpose of helping people in transition. So I still feel like I've got more runway. I don't have to land yet. I'm still in the game, and that's a huge blessing at my age. I went to our 50th reunion a few years ago, and I'm looking at people I grew up with saying, oh my gosh, I'm glad I'm still relevant and healthy.
Yeah, that is a blessing. I was thinking about all the conversations and coaching you've done with people, and I kind of wonder if it's a secret hack and maybe life coaches don't share this openly because they know the secret, but you only really get to experience your life.
Right.
That's really the
Yeah.
only one you get to experience. But when you're a life coach, you kind of take in the
Oh yeah.
struggles and the
Oh yeah.
joys of
Oh
all
yeah.
these other
Right.
people. Kind of
Right.
wonder if it's taught you, or if their stories and their struggles, because they got to have them and you didn't. Maybe you had some of them, maybe you shared some of them, but others maybe were unique to that person. And then you get to take this in and struggle through it with them. Is that like a secret hack there, or something you gain?
So everybody I work with, I don't want this to sound like a cliche, but when I'm listening to them, I'm reflecting what I'm hearing about myself. And I'll usually take away, oh, I need to rethink that. Or, gosh, I wouldn't have thought about that. That's interesting. Or just the challenge and the struggle. Once you get a certain amount of experience, like just say a sport, like tennis, you watch others through a totally different lens.
Hmm.
You're replaying what they're doing through your game and you're picking up tricks and things. I think watching is another form of just reading lots of books. You read lots of books and you hear the authors. Michael Vance was the former dean of Disney University, was part of Epcot Center, the president of the American Creative Association. Incredible guy. And I got to spend a week in a very small workshop with him. But one of the things he loved to do is read people like a book. And so I learned that back in the early 80s. So I think too, the way I'm wired, I've got just natural curiosity. And I think that curiosity is always looking to unpack and find out why and what works and what doesn't work. I love doing this.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I was curious about that, to see if that was like a, not selfish in any ways, but if you gained in ways that maybe others wouldn't expect.
Yeah, I just got off the phone with somebody trying to figure out his secret formula. He's a consultant and a speaker, not sure where to fit. And as we were just talking back and forth, what's working for you, what's not working for you, where's the passion, what are some stories that have happened before in the past, what's your process? I don't have a process. Everybody's got a process. So let's talk about what you do and think of it. And I walked away and said, you know what? I need to clarify my process.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm helping him. And I think that's the advantage. There's this thing called the curse of knowledge. We're so in our worlds, and talking to somebody else gives you what's an outsider going through. So it gives you that kind of naive view again, the beginner's mind, they call it.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of want to dig into these conversations that you have with others. And I know you have to probably be careful because those are all confidential
Right.
conversations. I just wonder sometimes if there's some reoccurring things. Do you ever hear a question from somebody, and then secretly in your mind, you're thinking, they should really be asking me this question? Like
Oh, all
when
the
you
time.
know they're asking you the wrong questions. Like
All the
what
time.
would be a good
Yeah.
example of that?
So the first thing I learned early on is that whatever the problem is they're saying is not the problem. And usually it's an externalized, generic kind of problem. But the problem is always the person. They're the biggest constraint. And everybody starts with, okay, here are the symptoms. So you're bouncing on top of the water. But then there's some other underlying causes. It could be misalignments with others or misalignments with your tools or your process is off. But bottom line, it's always the individual's clarity about what they're doing, why they're doing it. It's a relationship that has conflict in it that they're not really working with, self-awareness. So those are underneath most of it. And so the first part of the conversation is usually the dance. How do you kind of go through one layer, another layer, and get to the bottom where someone steps back and says, huh, I think that's it. And we all struggle with the clarity issue or the confusion issue. We all struggle with that. And it takes a while. And I told the person as we were hanging up, I said, the value of what we did is not the conclusion or the artifact that we'll create. It's you working through these questions in a very safe way and processing it. And the bottom line is you've got all the tools, you've got the credibility, you've got the history. Now you've got to go. It's the movie City Slickers with
Really
Bill
crystal.
and Jack
Yeah.
Palance. It's the one thing. What's the one thing you can do that'll move this ball forward? Or what's the one thing you can focus on? So the secret to consulting is just helping people be true to themselves, be transparent, see themselves, and clarify what I really want, why I want it, and what's the one thing I can do where I can move forward towards that.
And I also just love the way, even the very first line, the way you phrased it, you were like, the problem is not the problem is them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, like walking somebody down that path until they hit a mirror and they look in it. Like, that's super interesting to me. Like, I never let the kids blame the refs for a loss.
Yeah.
My kid
Right.
who plays sports and stuff, they
Oh,
can
sure.
can you
Yeah.
believe that call? He missed the call. Or it's like, you can never blame the refs.
Right.
It's just a life lesson.
It is. And it's a maturity lesson, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's good.
Here's a fun question just about coaching.
Okay.
Is just being 70 and coaching through somebody where you kind of know where they're at in life. Is there a younger person's problem that you simply cannot solve for them? And they just need to go through that part of their life.
Yeah. So the younger person problem that I had is that I looked at professional advancement as the goal. So just move up the ladder, and it's getting me to the justification we make. Here's the next step up. And if I don't take it, then it's going to put a ceiling on me. So I need to take it. But I never looked at the ripple effect, whether it was in my sweet spot or not. What would be the impact on my family? It was justified that if I provide and get to that success place, and there's a phase where we all have to go through that, prove ourselves and go up the ladder. But for me, I didn't stop until I had to, until you get that midlife crisis where the dot-com crash. I run into that with so many people from mid 40s into their mid 50s that are questioning. They feel trapped, right? They made the decision, their lifestyle is a certain way. But those are young people things because you don't see down the road. And you're on the treadmill, and it just is the next logical thing. The next logical thing can take you way off your internal compass and without even realizing it.
Wow. I know your story is, I know it brought you to your knees,
Oh,
when you
yes.
hit that wall. And I feel like it's the ambitious people that are most vulnerable.
Oh, I
And
can tell you story after story. And then where I'm at, I can see where the person's headed because of the reasons for the decisions they're making. And it's kind of like you can't do anything about it. They just have to go through it because the promise that they're looking at, they're seeing the romance of the opportunity. They're not seeing the reality. And that's common, right? We see what we want to see. We tell the story we want to hear. We justify the decision because it meets these three criteria. And what was it in Bruce Almighty, where Jim Carrey kept on saying, God, show me a sign, show me a sign.
yeah,
And he's driving behind a truck that is a sign truck with all these signs on it. Yeah, we can be blinded by, and it goes back to childhood stories. Why would somebody take the opportunity? They may have grown up in a really tight place, and this represents security for them.
yeah,
You can't judge good or bad with the decision. You just have to hope that you can help them live through the decision they made. And you'll have that with your kids. They're going to get independence and they're going to make decisions where you go, okay, I've seen this movie before, but there's no
yeah,
way, there's no spoiler alert you can give a kid or somebody. Hopefully the relationship bridge is strong enough that when they get into a tight place, they don't feel like they've got to justify themselves and prove themselves, that they've got the kind of relationship where they can say, man, I've gotten in over my head on this. Can you help me?
yeah. Now, I knew you want to walk people down a path so that they discover the truth, you know?
Yeah.
They discover you're going to help them get there. But have you ever just had to straight up just tell someone
Oh,
the
I,
truth?
I did yesterday.
What's the hardest truth you've ever had to tell someone?
Oh my gosh. That a certain
If you can share
relationship,
it.
yeah, that
Yeah.
a certain relationship they were in was going to turn out bad for them. And now it took 7 years for it to happen, but when it went bad, it went totally bad. And again, there's certain fundamentals in building good, strong relationships. And when you rush into something or you don't look at warning signs in the relationship and you don't have a circle of friends who believe in you, okay, you may make those. But I'll share a more recent story. So someone searched me out to be on the podcast, the Resilience Lab. They wrote a book on 10 lessons in life. And the guy was sharing, I saw this workshop and he said you could write a book in 30 days. So I did. And I'm going, okay, I'm interested to see. And he pitched it. I told him I'm not doing Resilience Lab anymore, but I will read your manuscript and give you some feedback. It was written by AI. So
Oof.
there was no pathos in it. There was no drama. There was no hero. What he had done is he had taken 10 characters like Viktor Frankl and just did 4 pages on why Viktor Frankl was so great. And so he got 10 of those characters and he tied them to a particular lesson in life. So my feedback was this: the guy I talked to wasn't the person that I was reading in the story. I didn't hear your
Mm.
voice in the story. And I said, and I'm assuming because you used AI to help you. I said, the good news is you've started. But I also didn't see your story in here. You made a brief reference. And so as a reader, I want to know what's the credibility of the person telling the story? And do I even care about the author? And
Yeah.
the third thing is that you told stories that everybody's already heard. Nothing new, no insight. And so I thought, okay, I'm never going to hear back from this guy again because it was really direct without saying it sucked or whatever, because it did
Yeah.
suck. It was just terrible. And I can't recommend you to any of the people in my podcast network because they would not find this meaningful to their audience. The good news is he came back and he wrote me and said, thank you for the thoughtful feedback. I can tell you spent time on this. Would you mind giving me a few tips? Let me try again. And when I rewrite it, send it back to you. And
Wow.
yeah, that
That was
surprised me.
you probably saved it, but
And I did frame it. I said, look, for people who know you, they may like it. You may be able to use it as a marketing, but it's not a book that people will want to pick up and read.
I can tell you if I'm going to invest for me to read a book, I'm all audio now. I'm all audiobook. It's
Right.
hard for me to put my eyes on paper these days, but for me to read a book and spend 10 hours of my life with something, like
Yeah. Right.
I need that credibility. You know,
Yeah.
I
And
need
there's,
to see who you are. Why should I spend my 10 hours listening to you?
yeah.
I want that up front.
Yeah. So anyway, that's an example of giving somebody some pretty direct feedback without saying
I
outright
like it.
what I really thought about it.
Yeah, yeah. I like it. And here's just a reflective question. Maybe it's tied to coaching, maybe it's not. Oh, and by the way, I even had a thought as you were talking about this relationship. I'm going to jump around here. You're talking about this
Okay.
relationship, and he said, I could tell it was going to go bad. 7 years later, it did. Is there a connection to being a futurist and a coach?
Oh, gosh. That's a good question. I've always been able to do that, see down the road. So I think I fell into the media ecology in college with a framework for looking at how to project. So I've always seen systems, I've always seen ripple effects. And if you look at just the topics I've written about, they're very different disciplines: construction, theology, workplace strategy, leadership, strengths, health and
Education.
wellness, education. But again, I think we talked about there's an underlying common thread to all of them, and it's human performance in complex systems. And I can see it. It's like the movie Sixth Sense. I see people's futures, and Cole saw dead people. And sometimes
Yeah.
I see this person's going down a bad road, but it's not a mystery, is it? Because if someone's
Well,
making good decisions or bad decisions, eventually you go out 5 times to eat with somebody and you see they always get the cheeseburger with the fries and the milkshake, right? And they
Yeah.
always do that. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, okay, a lifetime of that is going to end up here.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's taking the time to notice the patterns and the
Oh, I do notice.
reoccurrences. And
Yeah,
that's the
I
thing,
I watch people. Yeah.
like, I don't know if it can be taught or not, or if it's just a skill that you kind of
Yeah, I think over time you've got a natural proclivity, and then you get opportunity.
get in the way of that. So, for instance, like I'd like to think I'm observant. I'd like to think I'm thoughtful, but I also know this weakness, this other side of the coin of unrealistic optimism
Yeah,
oftentimes gets in the way. And I paint all sorts of futures that don't come true.
and I've got the same blind spots, but I see what I think is next, and then strategic is my top strength. So I'm always navigating the future, and then achiever is okay. So what do we do about it? What's next? What do we do about it? That gets me into equal trouble. It did with my
Yep.
son. My son starts out, he's a little bit like you without the motivating strengths, but he's a people person. So he starts by how are we doing before it's what are we doing. I start with where are we going, what are we doing, and then okay, we'll work on the relationship thing as we go. That hasn't always worked for me.
That's funny. Yeah. So people would confuse that as like not having tact or whatever.
Empathy is 34 on my 34 strengths. And my family says dad wants to care. He just doesn't.
Hey, intentions are everything, man.
Yeah.
I
But
totally
again,
believe.
that's where the self-awareness thing comes in. What do you look like at your best? How do you get in your way? And are you comfortable enough with giving people permission to point it out or to push back?
Let's talk about self-awareness for a minute because
Okay.
I had something I'm curious about. Can you have too much self-awareness? Meaning, can self-awareness become self-obsession and then it manifests into other things?
Yeah.
Most
So if
times,
we look at a continuum, right? Look at a
yeah.
continuum. No self-awareness, right? Somebody like me with
No.
empathy. Yeah. But you've got those who are clueless. You're in a meeting and they're taking up the space and people are checking out. On the other part of the spectrum, you've got the narcissist or the sociopath, the
Yeah.
person who is completely self-absorbed. And so it's a continuum of that. And yes, some people are more wired to be hyper in tune, internal. Oh, there's actually a word for internal focus, external focus. I don't know what the technical word is. We're wired to be either more internally focused or externally focused. Like, for example, somebody who does have empathy high in their strengths, they can instinctively put themselves in someone else's shoes and sense what they're going through. But the problem is it stays in their system. It radiates. So people with those relating strengths, with that reciprocity, they treat you the way they want to be treated. When something happens, it becomes personal to them, a slight or something like that, with like my relator strength. If somebody ignores my calls who's in my inner circle for a couple of days, I had a colleague in consulting who has no relating strengths at all. So he's very externally focused, right? Outside. And I'm probably a little bit on the right side of internally focused, not completely internally focused, but a little bit. So we had a proposal due on a Friday, and I pinged him on Monday and said, hey, we need to get together, put our heads together, and build the strategy for this. And so my rules, relators have certain rules. You're in the circle or out of the circle. And one of them is I will get back to you within 24 hours if you're in my circle of trust. But unconsciously, I expect that of others in my circle of trust. So Tuesday, he didn't get back to me. And I'm feeling like, okay, what's up? Wednesday, he did not get back to me. So now I'm getting a little stressed. Thursday, he didn't get back to me. And now I'm pissed. And I've got this backstory,
Yeah. Like he's
Nimsu.
purposely avoiding you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the new consultant here in the company and I don't rank and all of this. And I'm going through some initiation process or whatever it is, all of this. And so I leave him a real nasty message that evening and said, look, tomorrow we need to get our proposal in. I know you're busy. I probably shouldn't have done it that way. But the next morning, first thing, he calls all apologetic. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was traveling and doing this and that. That misalignment gave us the opportunity to talk about rules of engagement. And not that I'm right, not that he's right, but what works for us.
Yeah.
So we came up with a rule of when I reach out, the reason I get stressed is that I'm dependent on some information. So I don't know if you're going to get to me or not. So my stress level's going up. So I explained to him what was going on inside of me. I said, if I know you got the message and you can tell me when you want to get back, I'm good with that. Now, he didn't do it all the time. He didn't always get back, but at least we had a way of resetting it. And I actually got teased in the consulting firm where people would get back to me in 24 hours and, am I still on your island or not? And,
That's funny.
but everybody has an operating system, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so taking time to figure out, you may be a Mac and I may be a PC, and now we got to figure out how to talk together.
I'm trying to think of what would be the real life, like Mac and PC version. Is it like a coastal human versus a Midwestern one? Or like, what would be the Mac and PC operating system clash?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more schooling or, because they do joke about like a salesperson having a conversation with an engineer or vice versa.
Yeah.
But it is really, in fact, this is like a straight topic story, but my dad, he was a head of quality. And he was an engineer, a PhD in metallurgy. He was all about metals and formulas and processes, and his brain works in this extremely logical way. And clearly, he did not pass all of that intelligence down, but that's okay. He would have to go out traveling occasionally with the salespeople he worked for Olin Brass, right? And he used to talk about the salespeople. He said he called them the tassel shoe guys because he said they always had the little leather shoes with the two little tassels that kind of swung around there. And that was very much like a sales look. And he very much looked like an engineer with a pocket,
so he had laced
shoes, pocket protector.
Yeah.
Like it's just the whole thing,
yeah.
the whole vibe. And it's just kind of funny because it's a different language.
Yeah. And we all pick up on those kinds of, looks and behaviors. And I was part of a group this is in the 70s, where everybody had a daytimer. You could tell what group we were part of because we all had daytimers. And
the daytimer, and then there's the Casio watch people. That was like a thing that said something about your operating system. There's all these little visual cues.
Now we've got the whoops. Yeah, the whoop thing.
Yeah, there's obviously that just immediately sends a signal that you are deep into well-being, and people know, and they make the relationship and all that. Yeah, it's funny the cues that you send off that says, "Here's how I work."
That's right. Yeah.
It's all around us.
Yeah. So for you, what's your operating system? The people you work with best, what does that look like?
As I begin to work more with somebody, I get much more shorthanded in my language and responses. I start to strip away some of the formality, and I like to move quick. I have a fast pace about me. And I would say, I'll give maybe an opposite example. If there's someone that likes to put something into action immediately, I'm not necessarily a great partner because I throw out lots of ideas. And I know they tell you to not say stuff like, this might be a bad idea, or this might be a dumb idea. You're not supposed to start with that. And I understand that. But actually, I need to lean on that phrase because literally, I tell people I am sharing a dumb idea. And I'm only sharing it because I want you to have the next one. I call them stepping stones. So I train the team around me. That's
good. That's called a rule of engagement.
Yeah. So now we have language for it. These are stepping stones. I'm going to share a dumb idea, and it's going to give you a stepping stone to the next dumb idea, which will give someone else a stepping stone to maybe a really good idea. And so it's like we start, and this way I don't have to say, this is just going to be a bad idea. I can say, this is a stepping stone. And I think that is when I work my best, is when people, tell me when it's a bad idea, or they don't just immediately like, Doug said this, because half the time I'm just exploring.
Now you've got my mind going down two avenues. One is you're one of the most accepting, positive, encouraging people I've ever run across, which
Thank
is
you.
why I like you. But you also have some really clear boundaries that if someone crosses a certain line. So for me to get kicked out of your circle of trust, what kind of thing would I have had to have done?
This is like, I don't like cheating. Would probably be like my least favorite thing that somebody could do, to cheat on something. That would like immediately change things. I don't have many professional instances where I've run across that. Fortunately, I haven't. But this is almost more like a childhood thing,
Okay. Yeah.
that I just carry
Oh,
with me.
neat.
Yeah. Or like when my son plays tennis.
Yep.
And, when you play tennis, it's very different than basketball or
Yeah.
baseball, where there's an umpire and a ref. You call your own balls, and it's whatever side it's being hit to. If my son's hitting a ball to someone else, it's out, whether it is or isn't, the person who's returning it gets to call it out, and vice versa. So if I saw my kids cheat, it would be like,
Right.
and knowingly cheat. It can happen in tennis, you can make a mistake, but
Sure.
knowingly cheat bother me to the core. But I immediately will form opinions, and I probably don't give enough grace. But I don't give a lot of grace for
cheaters.
For cheaters. I just don't. So that would get you out of my circle if you were calling balls out that were in. Fortunately, in business, you don't really come across that, because if to cheat in business, you're risking getting arrested. No, I don't. I've never been in that situation where somebody's cheated in business, fortunately. But yeah, that would be the thing.
Yeah. So I've had challenged 2 times where I've called out bad behavior in somebody, a leader, only to have it come back and bite me. And the thing that really sets me off is when somebody is rude or abusive to a colleague, especially a subordinate. That sets me off. And so I did with somebody who was a showroom division manager. I was at the same manufacturer, and I went to HR and said, look, this is just unacceptable. The person was in tears. I was there. It was embarrassing to listen to. And so what I didn't know is that this person was a 20-year friend of the head of HR. So yeah, it came back to bite me. And all of a sudden my expense reports are getting monitored more heavily. And I got called up to corporate to sit down on performance review. And I said, oh my gosh. So that takes after my dad. My dad just did not tolerate that. And sometimes it cost him professionally when he wouldn't tolerate that. And so that's happened to me twice where I've done that. And fortunately, I'm not in that position or role anymore. But yeah, so that'll set me off.
Yeah. I've never been in that. I've been lucky. I've been lucky to be around good people. I've only worked for 2 companies, both Southern Indiana companies, and
both family owned. So it's a culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just been good people. I've never seen the reaming of people, like subordinates and or the narcissistic, egotistic leaders. I've just never had that. I've just been fortunate there.
Yeah, I hear you. So the second thing I was wondering about is we all have good and bad interviews, right? I was doing an interview with our group, and we had one that was really hard, and you got to watch that. So for you, what kind of guest makes it really hard? Or did you ever interview somebody who said, I can't use this stuff?
I have. Absolutely.
Okay.
Here's where I found people fall off, is when they focus so much on what they're going to say that they completely forget that the only thing the audience really cares about is how you say it.
Okay.
Do you love what you're talking about? Do you care about what you're saying? But instead they try to find all the right words or remember what they were going to say. And then it just falls apart. It just lacks passion, interest, creativity. It goes out the window. And so I use that advice actually for anybody in any position where they might be presenting something, or even if they're not, if they're presenting themselves, if they're going to a job interview, I remind them that, hey, if you had time to prepare, spend less time on the content of your presentation and spend more time on how you feel about the people that you're going to speak to. And
Wow.
if you love the people you're going to
I love
speak to,
that. Yeah.
that love will come out. It'll be audible, it'll be visible, and it will completely change that conversation.
That's
So
so cool. Yeah. I
that's the
like it.
coaching I give to others.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you realize halfway through something you forgot to say something, no one knows. And honestly,
That's right. It's true.
no one really even cares. Only you care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So I'm going to take that advice as well. Think about just what do I love in the moment. And also what I was hearing there is just be present. It reminds me a little bit of the instructions in improv comedy. And that was really hard. I took 8 weeks of improv comedy lessons. And what you're saying was the thing I struggled with the most.
Yeah. It's like you have to trust that you have a fine working brain, and it will understand what's being said, and it will deliver you something fun in response. And it's like you have to let go of the fact that you're everything amazing you have to say is like all about preparation and planning. It's in there. Just
Yeah.
trust. It's in there.
So I was going to ask, on the other side, what conversation pulled the best out of you in one of your interviews? Now, the recent one you did, I loved it. It was lively. The one with Valerie was,
Oh yeah.
those were two people in sync in rhythm, the energy, the passion. And how do you bottle that?
Yeah. I wish you could. I don't over prepare for those conversations.
Okay.
I prepare somewhat enough to where they know I'm really interested in them. I've done a little work, but I really want to discover something in the moment. And I think one of the best ways to do it is how I'll listen. I will listen in a certain way. So when I hear interviewers, so often I hear them just move on from something amazing somebody just said. They just move right into the next question.
Nice. Yeah.
And as the person listening to the interview, you're like, why didn't you ask them? Why didn't you dig in deeper? And so I've started now to listen in a way to where when there is something amazing, I hold on to that. And sometimes I'll just even write it down because I don't want to forget it. But then I always come back to it later. And I'm like, hey, you said something.
Nice.
And I think that creates, I don't know, it helps create the validation that everybody wants in a conversation. Now, when it's two people like me and you don't need validation in this moment from me, we've progressed way beyond that. When
Right.
someone's sitting in a chair and they're not used to being interviewed, and the constant question
Yeah.
of how am I doing? Am I doing okay? It's going through their head constantly. My way of making sure they know they're doing a great job is
Man, that's such great insight. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, it's coming back to something they said, letting them know it was special, and then asking for more.
So is that easier to do than interviewing someone, like talking to someone like me? Is that easier for you to do that?
That's the same in terms of difficulty. It's the same. I think this is pretty easy because there's a comfort level. It's hard to replicate this. And at the same time, I'm sitting with you and I know there's magic up there, that some of it is stuff I've heard before. And man, I'd love to get back into that. But I kind of know we've had that conversation. And it's up to me to go deeper and find new things. And actually, it's a good segue. I know we're wrapping this episode up, and I wanted to get into some of the wisdom gained through coaching that you've done. I have more. I want to go on a tennis exploration with you. Okay.
Oh, neat. Okay.
And just get into what going deep into something like tennis can teach you. Okay.
Yeah.
Like in life lessons, and draw comparisons. It's even a fun question I have about unforced errors and the connection between unforced errors in tennis and in life. Okay. So just sit on that one for a minute. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll have that conversation just around workplace culture and just healthy workplace culture. And you get to step into a lot of different workplace, like major projects that are being handled. You observe workplace culture. So I want to get into that. That's my next two kind of back and forth. Can we do that? Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Not a lifetime of tennis, probably 60 plus years of tennis.
Yeah,
I've seen some of the best players on the planet, and I've had an opportunity to coach a couple of really great young stars.
I would love that because I'm personally getting deeper down that rabbit hole. And so I'll have just questions in general about your journey there, as a pro, which is pretty cool. But then just all the things about, I don't know, like the self being alone out there. And I think part of it is I just listened to Andre Agassi's autobiography, Open, which fascinating.
Yeah. And the challenge for him was he had brutal youth. Oh. Yeah. Bollettieri was just a beast of a coach. And his dad didn't help him much. So, no, and I saw a lot of that growing up. I saw a lot of where the parents were living through their players. Fortunately, I didn't have that. And maybe a little bit unfortunately, I didn't get that kind of push or drive. But yeah, so you've got to get the fundamentals right. And the biggest mistake I think coaches make with tennis players is they try to do a one size fits all, Eastern forehand grip or Western grip or whatever it is. But your vision really will dictate what side of the body you're most comfortable with, what grips you should use, your stance. So nobody starts with, are you right eye dominant or left eye dominant? And until you do that, then you don't know how to tailor something to somebody. I'm right eye dominant. And so my backhand was always my sweet, consistent, best shot I had. And I always struggled with the forehand because when I was growing up, you used what we call an Eastern forehand. In other words, the racket is very flat when it goes through the ball. But because I was right eye dominant, when I got to the side, my right eye was behind me, so I couldn't see the ball well. I didn't have the right vision. So if a coach had worked with me at the time, he would have opened my stance. Instead of being sideways, I would have a little more of my chest exposed to the front. And then my grip, instead of the racket being flat, would have been a little bit down. So I would be coming up through the ball. And that's how most players hit today. They hit with what's called a Western forehand grip and very open. But again, I didn't develop that until after college. And then my game really took off even better in terms of consistency and being good on both sides, forehand and backhand. Yeah, just getting the right stance and then the right grip and then the right size racket and the right tension of the ball, all that's important.
So my plan is to take the tennis conversation, which could be the next episode, and I have questions inspired around that subject, and it won't be purely on tennis, but it'll be on things like talent too. About on how to get really good at something. It'll be a good conversation.
And we can pull strengths in because I've coached several pros and looked at their strengths to see, okay, your practice, you need to just be steady and consistent. You need to have high input and bolts of energy and catalyst. So we can talk about that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Rex, this was a good one.
Yeah, fun. Yeah. And so what's the other one I need to be thinking about that you're going to tee up?
Workplace culture.
Oh, workplace culture.
I have an endless amount of questions there too.
Yeah, we all, don't we?
Yeah. This will be good.
Okay. Doug, fun. And I don't know when we're going to do the next one, but I know it'll be back and forth, just like a good tennis match.
Hey, good call out.
All right.
All right. Thank you.